You think being single means waiting? Waiting to meet someone, waiting for life to finally start, waiting to feel whole. You scroll through your phone at night, watching other people's highlight reels, and somewhere in the back of your mind, you've convinced yourself that the missing piece, the relationship, the woman, the partnership, is what's standing between you and a real life. You've been told that love completes you, that finding the right person is the goal, that until then, you're somehow in between chapters, wrong, dead wrong. Being single is not a pause. It is not a waiting room. It is not a problem that needs solving. Singlehood is leverage. It is the most structurally free period of your adult life, and most men are burning it. Most men are spending their most powerful years distracted, reactive, passive, waiting for external circumstances to give their life shape. They are outsourcing their direction to an algorithm, to a relationship, to comfort. And by the time they realize what they had, the window is closing. Today, that changes. Today, you are going to understand exactly what you should be doing as a single man, and why almost everything you have been told points you in the wrong direction. This is not advice for the weak. This is a blueprint for the man who is finally willing to use his time instead of just surviving it. This is your advantage window, and it is open right now. Let's start with the truth most men cannot see clearly because they are too busy feeling bad about their relationship status. Single years are structurally flexible years. Read that again. The structure of your life when you are single is fundamentally different from the structure of your life when you are in a long-term relationship, when you have children, when you have a mortgage built around a shared income, when your decisions must account for another person's needs, emotions, schedules, and future. Right now, if you are single, your time is yours. Not partially yours. Not yours after the kids go to bed. Yours. Every hour of every evening belongs to you. Every weekend is yours to allocate. Every financial decision is yours alone to make. Every risk you want to take has no collateral damage on someone who depends on you. This is not a small thing. This is an enormous structural advantage, and almost no one is treating it that way. Think about time ownership first. When you are single, you can wake up at 5 in the morning and train for 2 hours without waking anyone. You can work until midnight on a project you believe in without explaining yourself. You can invest 3 hours on a Saturday into learning a skill, building a system, reading the books that will compound into intellectual capital over the next decade. You have discretionary time at a level you will likely never have again in the same form. The question is not whether you have time. The question is what you are doing with it. Think about risk tolerance. When you are single and have no dependents, your risk floor is low. If you try to start a business and it fails, you recalibrate and move. If you relocate to a new city for an opportunity, you pack a bag. If you invest aggressively and take a loss, you absorb it personally. You are the only person affected by your choices. This is not a burden. This is an extraordinary degree of freedom that most men in their 30s and 40s would pay dearly to reclaim. You have it right now. The men who use this period to take calculated, courageous risks are the ones who emerge from their 20s with momentum. The ones who play it safe while complaining about being stuck are the ones who look back with regret. Think about geographic mobility. You can go where the opportunity is. You are not tied to a city because of someone else's job, someone else's family, someone else's comfort zone. If the best version of your career requires moving across the country or across the world, you can do that right now, without a negotiation, without a compromise, without the guilt of asking someone to sacrifice their network and roots for your ambition. Geographic flexibility is a real competitive advantage. Entire careers pivot on being willing to be where the opportunity lives. Think about financial agility. When you are single, your income minus your personal expenses equals your investable surplus. That equation is simple and powerful. You can live lean and invest aggressively. You can stack your skills and increase your income without splitting the result. You can build assets during this phase, before lifestyle inflation, before joint accounts, before a cost structure that requires two incomes just to maintain. The men who treat their single years as a financial construction phase arrive at relationships from a position of strength. The men who treat it as a period of unconstrained spending arrive at relationships from a position of dependency. Here is the rule you need to carry forward. Freedom without direction becomes decay. That is not a metaphor. It is a pattern. Watch the men around you who are single and aimless. Watch what they do with unlimited free time and zero external accountability. They consume. They scroll. They stay out late doing things that do not accumulate into anything. They confuse motion with progress. They stay comfortable in a life that is slowly narrowing while they believe they are living freely. Freedom is only powerful when it is aimed. Directed freedom is leverage. Undirected freedom is erosion. You are in the leverage window right now. The only question is whether you are pointing it at something. Now let's go deeper. Because the reason so many men misuse this window is not laziness alone. It is biology misaligned with modern circumstance. Men are wired for pursuit. This is not opinion. This is observable across evolutionary history, across cultures, across behavioral science. The male psyche developed in an environment where survival required acquisition of territory, of status, of resources, of capability. Men who pursued aggressively, who competed for dominance, who accumulated skills and resources over time. Those men survived, reproduced, and built civilizations. The drive you feel when you are working towards something difficult, when you are competing for a goal, when you are improving at something that matters, that is not modern ambition. That is ancient wiring expressing itself in a contemporary context. The male drive for status acquisition is real, and when it is channeled correctly, it is extraordinarily productive. Status, in the biological sense, does not mean arrogance or dominance for its own sake. It means being the man in your environment who has resources, who has competence, who has the respect of other men, who can be relied upon in adversity. Every man who has ever built something meaningful has activated this drive. Every man who has let it go dormant has felt the creeping emptiness that results. The competition instinct is real. Men develop in relation to other men. We calibrate against each other. We sharpen in environments where we are challenged, where we are pushed, where there is a standard we are trying to meet or exceed. This is why boys raised without fathers, without male mentors, without competitive environments tend to drift. Not because of a character flaw, because the biological mechanism for development requires friction and challenge. Comfort does not develop men. Resistance does. Achievement-based identity is real. Men derive a significant portion of their psychological stability from being good at something, from being useful, from being capable. This is not a cultural construct that can be easily dismantled. It is woven into how the male psyche processes self-worth. The man who is not building anything, not improving at anything, not competing for anything, that man will fill the void. And he will fill it with consumption, with distraction, with short term pleasure that leaves him further behind the man he was supposed to become. Here is the statement you need to hear clearly. When you stop pursuing growth, you pursue distraction. There is no neutral. The human brain does not sit idle. It fills. The question is whether you are filling it with inputs that compound, skills, knowledge, relationships, physical capacity, or inputs that consume, entertainment, passive scrolling, numbing pleasures that leave nothing behind. Build mode or consume mode. You are always in one or the other. And right now, without a relationship structuring your time, without a family anchoring your priorities, without a defined mission pulling your energy, you will default to consume mode unless you consciously, deliberately, aggressively choose otherwise. The men who understand this and act on it are the ones who exit the single phase as a different category of person than the ones who entered it. The men who sleep through it arrive at the next chapter of their life with the same limitations they had when they started, except now they have less time and less structural freedom to address them. So let's get practical. Let's talk about what you actually do. Rule 1. Build your financial foundation first, not second. Not after you have figured out your dating life, or after you feel ready, or after circumstances feel more favorable. First, right now. While you have maximum time, maximum risk tolerance, and maximum financial agility. Income growth is the starting point. Your current income is not fixed. It is a reflection of your current skill set, your current network, and the current value you provide to the market. All three of those can be changed. The question is whether you are actively changing them or passively accepting them. Most men accept their income as if it were a weather forecast, something that happens to them rather than something they influence. High-income men treat their earning capacity as a skill to be developed. They study how income is generated in their field. They identify the gaps between where they are and where the market pays more. They move toward those gaps deliberately. Skill stacking is one of the most powerful financial strategies available to a single man with time. A single skill makes you replaceable. 2 or 3 rare skills combined in an unusual way make you nearly irreplaceable. The programmer who understands marketing and can sell is worth 5 programmers who cannot. The engineer who can write, speak, and manage is worth 3 engineers who can only execute. You have time right now to stack, to learn the secondary skills that transform your primary skill into a package the market pays at a premium. Every hour you invest in compounding your skill set is an hour that generates returns for the rest of your career. Asset building is the next layer. Income is not wealth. Income is cash flow. Wealth is what you build with that cash flow when you do not spend it all. The single man who lives at 80% of his income and invests the remaining 20% consistently over a 5 to 10 year period exits that period with a financial foundation that changes the math of his entire life. He has options. He can take risks from a position of security. He can turn down opportunities that do not serve him. He can weather downturns without catastrophic stress. The man who lived at 110% of his income during the same period has debt, dependency, and fragility. Delayed gratification is the mechanism that makes all of this work. The premium apartment, the new car, the expensive wardrobe, all of those things are available to you. The question is whether purchasing them now is the highest use of your capital. Ask yourself, does this acquisition increase my earning capacity, my health, my skills, or my network? If the answer is no, it is consumption, not investment. Consumption is fine in measure. Consuming everything is how you stay exactly where you are. Here is the statement that should reframe your relationship with money permanently. Money is not about luxury. It is about leverage. Money is optionality. It is the ability to say yes to things that matter and no to things that don't. It is the cushion that allows you to take risks, to transition between opportunities, to weather unexpected events without collapsing. Lifestyle inflation versus asset accumulation. That is the binary you are navigating every time you make a financial decision while single. Choose accumulation. Build the foundation now. The lifestyle will come, but the foundation must come first. Rule 2. Train your body like you are still competing, because you are. Physical discipline is not vanity. It is a system of self-governance. The man who shows up to the gym at 6 in the morning when he doesn't feel like it, who maintains his nutrition when no one is watching, who pushes through the resistance when quitting would be easier. That man is practicing something that translates directly into every other domain of his life. He is practicing the ability to do the hard thing before the reward arrives. That is the fundamental skill of all high performance. Physical training is where you build it most tangibly. Hormonal optimization is a real and underappreciated dimension of male performance. Training consistently, particularly resistance training, directly influences testosterone levels, cortisol regulation, energy availability, and cognitive clarity. This is not gym culture mythology. These are measurable physiological responses. The man who trains hard and consistently operates with a different hormonal baseline than the man who is sedentary. He has more drive, more mental clarity, more emotional stability, more resilience under pressure. He sleeps better. He recovers faster. He thinks more clearly. You are not going to build the financial foundation, the discipline, the network, and the emotional control this video is about to describe if your body is running at 60%. You need the physical infrastructure. Social signaling is real, whether you acknowledge it or not. A physically developed, well-maintained man is perceived differently by other men, by potential partners, by employers, by people he meets for the first time. This is not superficial. It is information. A strong body communicates that a man has discipline, consistency, and the ability to maintain standards over time. These are not trivial signals. They are read quickly and they influence outcomes. You can argue whether this should be the case. What you cannot argue is whether it is the case. The confidence loop is perhaps the most practical reason to train. Confidence is not a belief. It is a consequence. It is built through repeated exposure to difficulty, repeated achievement against resistance, repeated proof that your body responds to your will. The man who trains consistently knows what it feels like to want to stop and choose not to. That experience, repeated hundreds of times, builds something that no affirmation can manufacture. It builds the felt certainty that you can do hard things. That is a resource. A strong body signals internal order, and the most important person receiving that signal is you. Rule 3. Develop emotional control. This is the rule most men skip, and it is the one that costs them the most. Non-reactivity is a skill. The ability to receive a provocation, a disrespectful comment, an unexpected setback, a confrontation, a rejection, without immediately reacting from emotion is extraordinarily rare and extraordinarily powerful. Most men respond to friction by escalating, withdrawing, or collapsing. Each of those responses hands control of the interaction to the external circumstance. The non-reactive man receives the input, processes it, and chooses his response from a position of internal stability. He is not unfeeling. He is not cold. He simply does not allow other people's chaos to become his chaos. Calm communication is how this manifests in practice. The man who speaks with steady pace, low pitch, measured volume, who does not need to raise his voice to be heard, who does not become incoherent under pressure, who can have a difficult conversation without it deteriorating into an argument. That man is perceived as stable, trustworthy, and authoritative, not because he performs those qualities, because he has built the internal architecture that produces them. You can practice this. You practice it by deliberately slowing down your responses in moments of friction, by adding 2 seconds between provocation and reply, by learning to ask questions instead of making defensive statements. Delayed response power is a concept worth sitting with. Every second you wait before reacting to an emotionally charged situation is a second in which the rational brain can engage before the reactive brain takes over. The man who sends the angry text immediately loses ground. The man who waits, thinks, and responds deliberately retains ground, and usually gets a better outcome. This applies in business, in relationships, in negotiations, in conflicts of any kind. Speed is valuable when you are executing a plan. Speed is dangerous when you are responding to emotion. Frame control is the advanced expression of emotional stability. Your frame is your interpretation of reality, the context through which you process events, conversations, and relationships. A man with a strong frame does not allow other people's definitions, judgments, or emotional states to overwrite his own. He remains grounded in his own sense of identity, purpose, and values even when pressure is applied. He does not need external validation to know where he stands. This is not arrogance. It is psychological groundedness, and it is built through exactly the habits this section describes. Not reacting from emotion, communicating calmly, taking time before responding, knowing who you are independent of what others say about you. Emotional volatility versus emotional stability. That is the binary. The volatile man is unpredictable, exhausting, and ultimately untrustworthy, to others and to himself. The stable man is a resource. He is the person others turn to when things are difficult. He is the man women describe as grounding, as safe, as real. He is the business partner who does not panic. He is the friend who does not amplify drama. He is the man who makes problems smaller by virtue of his presence rather than larger. Emotional stability is not a personality type you either have or don't. It is a capacity you build through deliberate practice. Start now. It compounds. Now let's talk about the social infrastructure that most men completely neglect. Build a brotherhood network, not a social circle, not a group of people you happen to be friendly with. A brotherhood. A network of men who are building something, who hold you accountable, who challenge you, who bring opportunities and perspectives and standards into your life that elevate your trajectory. Male alliances have been the backbone of every major human achievement in history. Men do not build alone. They build in groups, in movements, in institutions. The greatest businesses, the greatest armies, the greatest movements of ideas, all produced by men operating in aligned networks with shared values and complementary skills. The idea that the serious, ambitious man should operate as a lone wolf is a romanticized fantasy that produces isolated, stagnant men. The serious man builds alliances deliberately. Mentorship is one of the most asymmetric investments available to you. Finding a man who is 5 or 10 years ahead of you in a domain you want to develop and building a genuine relationship with that person compresses your learning curve in a way that almost nothing else can. The mentor has already made the mistakes, has already navigated the decisions you're about to face, has perspective that only time produces, and the relationship, if genuine, provides something beyond information. It provides orientation, a sense of where the path leads, access to a network that would otherwise take you years to develop independently. Seek mentors deliberately, offer value in return, maintain those relationships with consistency. Social capital is real capital. Your network determines what information reaches you, what opportunities appear, who vouches for you when it matters, who calls you when something valuable becomes available. The man who invests in relationships, who shows up, who delivers on his word, who remembers what matters to the people around him, who contributes to the networks he is part of, accumulates social capital that converts into tangible outcomes over time. Opportunities do not appear uniformly across the population. They flow through networks, and the quality of your network determines your access. Accountability is the dimension most men resist because it is the most uncomfortable. Having men in your life who know your goals and will ask you about them, who will call you on the gap between your stated commitments and your actual behavior, is one of the most powerful performance mechanisms available. Isolation makes it easy to renegotiate with yourself in private. Brotherhood makes that renegotiation costly when someone else knows what you said you were going to do. The bar for not doing it rises. Use that. Surround yourself with men who are going somewhere, who have standards, who will not let you coast. Isolation weakens men. Tribes sharpen them. Rule 4. Date strategically, not desperately. This section will challenge you. Pay attention. Avoiding validation chasing is the first and most important principle of strategic dating. Validation chasing is the pattern of seeking approval, reassurance, and positive feedback from women in order to feel okay about yourself. It is what happens when a man's internal sense of worth is unstable. He looks for women to stabilize it. The problem is not moral, it is practical. Validation chasing signals low status, low self-certainty, and emotional dependency. These are qualities that consistently produce the opposite of the outcomes you want. The man who needs a woman's approval to feel good produces behavior clingy, anxious, eager, approval-seeking that undermines attraction. The man who is grounded in his own sense of worth, who engages from a stable internal position, who clearly has a life of his own that does not depend on any particular woman's reception. That man produces a fundamentally different quality of interaction. Don't center your identity on dating. This is a critical error many single men make. They allow the success or failure of their romantic interactions to become the primary metric by which they evaluate their lives. Every match, every conversation, every date becomes evidence about their value as a person. When it goes well, they feel worthy. When it goes badly, they feel deficient. This is an extraordinarily fragile way to live. It hands the most important metric, your self-regard, to the most unpredictable variable, other people's responses, and then wonders why the result feels unstable. Your identity must be built on what you build, what you practice, how you live, what you stand for. Dating is a part of your life. It should not be the operating system of your self-worth. Filter for compatibility, not for approval. Most men approach dating trying to be liked. They present the most agreeable, most accommodating, most impressive version of themselves in order to secure the other person's approval. This is backwards. You are also evaluating. You have standards. You have a vision for your future that requires a partner who is aligned with it. You are not auditioning for a role in someone else's life. You are evaluating whether another person's character, values, direction, and energy are compatible with the life you are building. This shift in orientation, from trying to be chosen to actively choosing, fundamentally changes how you show up and what you attract. Practicing detachment does not mean being cold or indifferent. It means being present without being dependent on the outcome. It means engaging fully and genuinely without staking your peace on what happens next. The detached man is interesting because he clearly has other things going on. He is not rearranging his life around the hope that a particular woman will respond in a particular way. He is not holding his breath waiting for a text. He is living his life, pursuing his goals, maintaining his standards. And when someone shows up who is genuinely compatible with that life, he engages with real presence. This is not a technique for manipulation. It is the natural result of actually having a full life. Chasing or selecting. The man who chases is always at a disadvantage. The man who selects is the man who has built something worth selecting from. Rule 5. Invest in competence that compounds. Skills that scale are different from skills that plateau. A skill that scales is one where your mastery translates into increasing returns over time, where the better you get, the more valuable you become, often exponentially rather than linearly. Writing is a scaling skill. Speaking is a scaling skill. Sales is a scaling skill. Strategic thinking, technical architecture, brand building, teaching, persuasion. These are skills where the top practitioners earn orders of magnitude more than the median practitioners, and where the gap between entry level and mastery grows rather than shrinks with time. Most men develop skills that plateau. They reach a level of competence and the returns flatten. This is not a flaw in the person. It is a flaw in the category of skill they chose to develop. Identify the skills in your domain that compound, that scale, that distinguish the truly exceptional from the merely capable, and develop those deliberately. Reputation building is the long-term expression of competence. Your reputation is what people say about you when you are not in the room. It is the accumulated record of your reliability, your quality, your integrity, and your capability as perceived by the people who have worked with you, for you, or alongside you. Reputation is extraordinarily durable in both directions. A good reputation, built consistently over years, generates opportunities, referrals, and access that would otherwise be impossible to acquire. A bad reputation, or an absent one, closes doors before you can knock. The single man who spends his structurally free years building a strong professional reputation, who delivers on his word, who does exceptional work, who treats people well, and contributes more than he extracts, is constructing an asset that will generate returns for decades. Long-term positioning requires thinking about where the market is going, not just where it is. The man who develops skills and builds reputation in a field that is growing positions himself ahead of the demand curve. The man who develops excellence in a field that is contracting is running against the tide. This does not require prophecy. It requires the habit of paying attention to structural trends, to where resources are flowing, to where the most capable people in your field are concentrating their effort. Positioning is a strategic choice, and the single man, with time to think and flexibility to move, has every advantage in making that choice well. Market awareness is the ongoing practice of understanding what the market values, how that value is changing, and where you sit in relation to it. This means knowing what comparable people in your field earn, what skills and credentials shift your market value, what the ceiling and floor of your current trajectory are, and what changes you would need to make to shift into a different bracket. Most men drift through their careers with almost no strategic market awareness. They take what is offered, accept the raises they are given, and discover only in retrospect that they underinvested in their own positioning. Competence compounds silently. The returns on skill investment do not appear immediately. They accumulate over years and then express themselves suddenly in the form of opportunities, promotions, partnerships, and outcomes that seem sudden to observers but were built over years. Rule 6. Control your digital consumption. Dopamine management is one of the highest leverage health interventions available to a modern man. Here is what most people do not fully understand about dopamine. It is not a reward signal. It is an anticipation signal. Dopamine is released in the brain not when you receive a reward, but when you anticipate one. This is why the infinite scroll is so effective at capturing attention. Every scroll is a dopamine hit in anticipation of something interesting or novel appearing. The brain begins to calibrate its baseline dopamine levels around the intensity and frequency of stimulation it regularly receives. When that stimulation is constant and high intensity, notifications, short video loops, reactive content, rapid visual cycling, the baseline rises, and then real activities, reading, focused work, sustained conversation, exercise, begin to feel flat, boring, unrewarding, not because they are, but because your brain's reward system has been recalibrated toward the shallow and immediate. Screen discipline is the structural response to this problem, not as a moral stance against technology, as a practical strategy for protecting the quality of your attention. Your attention is your most finite and valuable resource. It is the thing you exchange for money, for skill, for relationship depth, for understanding. Every hour of fractured, distracted attention is an hour in which you are not building anything. The man who protects his attention, who sets deliberate limits on screen exposure, who structures his day so that his best hours are spent on his most important work rather than on passive content consumption. That man operates at a categorically different level of output than the man who does not. Algorithm avoidance is the strategic recognition that the platforms you use most are optimized through extraordinary technical sophistication and enormous financial investment to capture your attention and hold it, not for your benefit, for theirs. The algorithm does not care about your health, your goals, your financial development, or your emotional well-being. It cares about engagement metrics, and it is better at capturing your attention than you are at protecting it. If you approach the contest passively, you do not win by willpower alone. You win by changing the structure of your environment. You log out. You delete the apps. You put the phone in another room during focused work. You replace the habit loops of passive scrolling with deliberate alternatives. You stop fighting the algorithm on its own ground. Information diet is the affirmative dimension of digital control. It is not enough to reduce the garbage. You must replace it with inputs that serve your actual goals. The man who reads one serious book per month, who listens to conversations between people he admires, who consumes content in his domain that expands his capability and awareness rather than merely entertaining him. That man is feeding his brain differently than the man whose media consumption is primarily reactive and entertainment driven. Over a year, the difference is noticeable. Over 5 years, it is transformative. You become what you repeatedly input. Reactive scrolling versus intentional learning. Choose intentionality every day. It is not easy. It is a decision you make over and over against an environment specifically designed to pull you in the opposite direction. Make it anyway. Now the pace changes. Now we slow down. Because the remaining questions are not tactical, they are foundational. Define your long-term vision, not approximately, not vaguely, specifically. Where do you want to live? This is not a throwaway question. Geography shapes your social environment, your economic opportunities, your cost of living, your access to nature or culture or community. The city where you built your early career may not be the city that serves the next chapter. The country where you grew up may not be the environment where the best version of your life is accessible. The man who defaults to geography, who stays where he is because moving requires effort, is making a choice by not making one. The man who deliberately decides where he wants to live and then positions himself to get there is exercising a form of agency that compounds in every domain of his life. What lifestyle do you actually want? Not the lifestyle your environment implies you should want, not the one marketed to you, not the one your peers are building by default, yours. Do you want a life centered around a demanding career and significant financial accumulation? Or do you want a life with more geographic freedom, lower overhead, and more time for things the market does not pay for? Do you want to live in a large city with proximity to culture, ambition, and density? Or in a smaller environment where you can build something rooted and community connected? These are not questions with correct answers, but they are questions that need answers from you. Clear, deliberate, considered answers. Because the man who does not define his desired lifestyle will find himself constructing someone else's by default. What type of woman fits that future? This is the question most men never ask. They think about attraction in the present tense. Who do I want now? Who is available now? Without considering whether the person they're drawn to is compatible with the life they are building toward. A woman who is extraordinary in every way can still be incompatible with your actual future if her values, her ambitions, her location preferences, her vision for family, her relationship with money and risk, if those things are misaligned with yours. The time to consider this is now, before you are emotionally entangled, before the relationship has momentum that makes clear thinking difficult. Build the vision first, then filter. If you don't define your future, someone else will, not maliciously. But the world has a default path, and it will guide you onto it through social pressure, cultural expectation, and the path of least resistance if you are not actively steering. The default path is not bad, but it is not designed for you specifically. It is the average of all choices made by all people who also didn't decide. You deserve better than the average, but you have to earn it through deliberate design. Now, the deepest question, the one that most men will not ask themselves clearly, love versus escape. Let's talk about this. Many men enter relationships not because they have something to offer and something genuine to share, but because they are looking for relief. Relief from loneliness, relief from the weight of self-construction, relief from the pressure of ambition, and the uncertainty of becoming. The relationship becomes a substitute for building rather than a companion to building. And it creates a particular kind of dynamic, one in which the man's emotional stability depends on the relationship's continuity, in which his sense of self is entangled with the woman's presence, in which the relationship was never really built on shared vision, but on shared escape from difficulty. This is not love, it is attachment from fear. Attachment from strength is different. It is the man who has built something, who has direction, discipline, financial foundation, emotional stability, a network, a vision, entering a relationship as an addition to a full life rather than as a replacement for an empty one. He brings presence. He brings certainty. He brings the security that comes from a man who knows who he is independent of, whether any particular relationship succeeds. He does not need the relationship to function. He wants it. He chooses it. That distinction between needing and choosing changes everything about the quality of the connection. Attachment from fear produces specific patterns: clinginess, over communication, the need for constant reassurance, jealousy grounded in low self worth, difficulty setting boundaries because you are too afraid of the relationship ending, tolerance of treatment you would not otherwise accept because the loneliness feels worse than the compromise. These patterns are not character flaws, they are the predictable output of entering a relationship from a position of deficit when the relationship becomes your primary source of emotional sustenance. Losing it becomes existential, and that terror shapes every interaction. Attachment from strength produces different patterns: presence without desperation, standards maintained without ultimatums, the genuine capacity to walk away from what does not serve you, not because you are cold, but because you have a life outside the relationship that is real and valuable. The ability to love without losing yourself, the security to give generously without resentment, because you are giving from surplus rather than depleting yourself from scarcity. Here is the rule: enter relationships from surplus, not loneliness. This does not mean you must have achieved everything before you date. It means your internal state must be one of construction rather than escape. You must be a man who is building something, who has a direction, who finds his life meaningful in the absence of the relationship, and who is adding a partner to that life, not subtracting his own development in order to accommodate a connection. The timing of a relationship in your life is far less important than the orientation from which you enter it. Now, let's bring this to its final point, the one that makes everything else urgent. Your 20s and 30s are construction years. This is not metaphor. It is structural reality. Compounding advantage begins early, or it doesn't begin powerfully. The man who starts investing at 25 and the man who starts at 35 are not behind by 10 years. They are behind by orders of magnitude in terminal wealth due to the exponential nature of compound returns. The man who begins building his network at 22 and the man who begins at 32 are not 10 years apart in social capital. They are separated by a decade of compounded relationships, of opportunities taken and passed along, of reputation accumulated and leveraged. The same principle applies to skill development, to physical health, to emotional mastery. Everything compounds, and compounding rewards those who start early with disproportionate outcomes relative to those who start late. Your reputation arc is being built right now, not when you decide you are ready, not when you feel like you have something worth being known for, right now. Every professional interaction, every delivered commitment, every moment of integrity or compromise is adding a data point to a record that other people use to assess you. Reputations built early solidify into default assumptions that follow you for decades. The young man who is extraordinarily reliable, who delivers remarkable work, who treats people with integrity, That man carries the benefit of that reputation through every subsequent door it opens. The young man who cuts corners, who is inconsistent, who prioritizes his comfort over his word, that man carries that weight too. The energy window is real. You have energy right now that you will not have at 50, not because life at 50 cannot be vital and productive. It can be, but because the regenerative capacity of a young body under consistent training and good nutrition is extraordinary. The late nights of focused work that your body recovers from in 24 hours will require 48 hours at 40. The ability to take on multiple significant projects simultaneously, to sustain high output across complex domains, to recover quickly from setbacks. These capacities are at their peak in the window you are currently inside. Use them. The man who pushes hard now, who builds the foundations now, who takes the risks now, he is leveraging an energy advantage that does not transfer to future years. It is available now, or it is not fully available. Time is leverage, and it expires. This is not meant to generate anxiety. It is meant to generate clarity. The window is open. The structural freedom is present. The energy is available. The compounding has not yet been lost to years of inaction. You are in the leverage phase of your life. Everything you do now returns more than what it will return if you do it later. This is not pressure to be perfect. It is an invitation to be deliberate, to make conscious decisions about your time, your energy, your money, your attention, your relationships, your body, and to direct them toward the construction of the man you are capable of becoming. Here is where it ends and where it begins. You have two options. You can use your singlehood as a distraction, as a period of comfortable drift, of passive consumption, of waiting for circumstances to deliver what you have not yet decided to build. You can fill the hours with content that asks nothing of you, with relationships that require no growth, with choices that feel fine in the moment and cost you something significant over time. That path is easy. It is the default. Most men are on it. Or you can use this period as acceleration, as the construction phase of your life, as the window in which you build the financial foundation that gives you options, the physical capacity that gives you energy and presence, the emotional control that makes you trustworthy and grounded, the brotherhood that sharpens and supports you, the skills that compound into a reputation that opens doors, the digital discipline that protects your attention, the long-term vision that gives your daily decisions meaning and direction. Being single is not the problem. Being unstructured is. The man who exits the single phase with wealth building, a trained body, emotional mastery, a strong network, compounding skills, a clear vision, and the capacity to choose a partner from abundance. That man has used the leverage window correctly. He is a different category of person than the one who entered it. Not because life gifted him more, but because he understood what the window was and decided to use it. Build wealth, build strength, build discipline, build optionality. The construction phase is now. Use it.